The Great Nicobar project has a seductive logic. The island sits 40 miles from the Malacca Strait, through which China's oil must pass. A base here gives India leverage, not today, but in the extreme contingency of a naval war. The geography is real. The strategic argument, in its barest bones, is sound. Everything built on top of that argument is not. Start with the direction the government is looking. China's actual naval presence in India's neighborhood is concentrated to the north, at Chittagong in Bangladesh, at the deep water port China is building on Myanmar's Arakan coast at Chokpyu, and in the overland pipeline that routes oil through Myanmar into Yunnan, bypassing the Malacca Strait entirely. Great Nicobar cannot meaningfully monitor any of these. It watches the eastern exit of a choke point, while China quietly builds infrastructure around the northern and western edges of the Bay of Bengal. The base is aimed at the right adversary in the wrong direction. Then came the Iris Dena. In March 2026, a US Navy submarine torpedoed the Iranian frigate, which had been India's guest at the Milan naval exercise in Visakhapatnam weeks earlier, in international waters off Sri Lanka. 80 sailors died. The Indian Ocean, which New Delhi had long treated as a zone of managed rivalry, became an active theatre of war. And India, which imports 40% of its crude through the Strait of Hormuz, discovered its real vulnerability. Not at the Malacca choke point it is watching, but at the Persian Gulf it cannot protect. India is the only major economy in the world without a functioning overland gas pipeline. The IPI, Iran, Pakistan, India, was strangled by American sanctions a decade ago. The TAPI, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, is buried under Afghan rubble. No pipeline diplomacy, no strategic reserve worthy of the name, no overland alternative to tankers through a strait at war. Against this backdrop, 81,000 crore rupees to build a base that monitors Chinese shipping at Malacca is not energy security. It is the performance of security in place of its substance. A commercial port that cannot commercially survive, built with a 12,230 crore state subsidy in an area where a single conglomerate dominates port operations, is not a development project. It is a disbursement-wearing one. The economics confirm the suspicion. The transshipment terminal at Galathea Bay is built on a fantasy that shipping lines will divert from Singapore and Colombo to a remote island with no hinterland, no banking ecosystem, and no feeder network. Singapore handles 37 million containers annually. Great Nicobar aims for 4 million in Phase 1 at a tariff already discounted 20% below Colombo just to attract interest. At those numbers, the revenue does not cover the interest on the construction loan. This is why the government has offered 12,230 crore rupees in viability gap funding, a formal public acknowledgement that no private operator would build this port on its commercial merits. A commercial port that cannot commercially survive, built with a state subsidy in a sector where a single conglomerate already operates 13 terminals, is not a development project. It is a disbursement-wearing one. Between 1969 and 1975, the government settled 330 ex-servicemen families on Great Nicobar, deliberately as frontier sentinels after the shock of 1962. They came not as economic migrants, but as citizens answering a sovereign call. Now the state acquires their farmland at 113 rupees to 180 rupees per square meter, while identical land in the Andamans fetches 11,000 rupees for tourism projects. The disparity is not a rounding error. It is a statement of priorities. The ex-servicemen are not opposing the project. They are asking that the land taken from them in service of the state not be confiscated a second time at rates that amount to nothing. A government that sends soldiers to secure frontiers and then prices their descendants out of those same frontiers has lost the right to speak of honor. The tribal question is worse. The Shompen, 237 people, among the most isolated communities on earth, and the Nicobaris are the island's only constitutionally recognized scheduled tribes. The Forest Rights Act, which mandates genuine tribal consent before forest diversion, came into force in 2008. It was not implemented on Great Nicobar until July 2022. Within 21 days of the statutory committees being constituted, the Deputy Commissioner certified all rights settled and consent obtained. A process that takes months, completed in 3 weeks. The Tribal Council wrote formally to deny this. The National Green Tribunal, citing strategic importance, cleared the project anyway. Strategic importance, it turns out, dissolves law. Which brings us to the question the government will not answer directly. Who ultimately does this base serve? Bloomberg reported in February 2026 that the expansion would help the US, Japan, and Australia counter China. Chinese state media described it as India helping America confront China, turning the situation into 4 against 1. Both characterizations from opposing sides reached the same conclusion. Under the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement signed in 2016, US naval vessels can access Indian facilities for fuel and repairs. A commercial port operated by an Indian private firm provides exactly the plausible deniability that makes such access politically convenient. India bears the ecological destruction. 130 square kilometers of UNESCO biosphere forest, the tribal disposition, the fiscal burden, and the target profile. The United States gains a forward outpost at the Malacca choke point without spending a rupee or deploying a sailor. A scaled military-only forward base on Great Nicobar, hardened, stripped of the commercial superstructure, focused on maritime surveillance, would serve the legitimate strategic purpose at a fraction of the cost and none of the ecological or social destruction. That simpler thing was available. The government chose this complex, expensive, subsidized, ecologically catastrophic hybrid instead. The choice demands explanation. The explanation, when it comes, will tell us something important about whose interests Indian strategy is actually designed to serve.
देश दुनिया की रखें खबर
हर रोज हर शाम
कानो कान
सुनते रहें द लेंस पॉडकास्ट।
रहे अपडेट लेंस के साथ।